Welcome to CGTN, live at the Search and Rescue Centre for the Tham Luang disaster. 5 days ago, 12 young boys, members of an under-16 football team, entered the cave system just here. We don't know exactly when. They were led by their coach, a 25-year-old man from the area. He knew the caves quite well before, but we spoke to his aunt a couple of days ago who said he actually hadn't been inside the caves for the last couple of years. But he took them in, and that was the last anyone saw of them. The alarm was raised on Saturday. Search parties started to go in to try and find them, and since then the search and rescue effort has been going on. Very few traces have been found of them, other than their bicycles and a couple of pairs of football boots which were at the entrance of the cave. Now if you come down this way, you can see some of the search and rescue effort. It's been really hard. We've got police here, we've got the army, there are civilian search and rescue teams. Leading the charge inside the caves have been Thai Navy SEALs. They are currently operating inside, as well as some locals who know the area very well. You can also see down here the conditions are pretty grim. This is an area which was a tourist destination but not popularly visited by too many people. Well, in the last 3 days we've seen thousands of people coming in, heavy vehicles like this, bringing in support systems, and they've turned the place into a swamp. The other big problem we've seen is rain. It's been raining very heavily for the last 4 days, throughout the day and the night. There's a brief respite at the moment, but we're expecting more rain. And of course, while that has made things difficult out here, it's made things unbearable inside. The water level inside the cave has risen to as high as 7 meters in some places. And according to one of the rescue workers I spoke to yesterday, that's a real problem. They think that what's happened is the boys went into the cave while the rains came up. Suddenly there was a flash flood that then trapped them inside, and they haven't been able to escape since. And those conditions are very difficult for the search and rescue teams as well. Of course, it's pitch black inside with heavy rains rising the water levels. Some of the passageways through have been completely cut off. And you can see here some of the teams. I think these guys are getting ready to go in. We've seen teams like this heading in and out of the cave entrance, which we'll get to in just a minute. These guys, judging by their clean clothes, haven't been in yet, but they're clearly prepared. They've got their ropes and their helmets. And when they're prepped and ready, they'll be coming down this way. The cave entrance is just through here. Now, we were inside a couple of days ago when things were a little more chaotic, but since then the authorities, quite rightly, have limited access because there are so many people trying to get inside. A lot of locals have been coming to pay their respects. There's a shrine just about 50 meters down the hill at the foot of the cage. There were people praying when we came in the other day, making offerings, praying for the safe return of the boys. The boys themselves were aged between 11 and 16, very young. They'd just been at football practice on that Saturday afternoon, and we think this was part of a team building exercise. They come out here to explore, to be together. And again, the aunt of the team leader we spoke to, Egg, his name is, said that he was incredibly committed to the boys and that the boys were all very united. She said they never fought with each other. They didn't even curse at each other. They all got on incredibly well. So I think one thing we can expect inside is that they will have worked together as a team, but the conditions also inside will be very tough. The temperature out here is fairly hot and steamy under the jungle canopy, but once you dip down into those caves, you're getting into much colder temperatures. If you add on top of that the fact that It's very wet, they're likely soaked, they haven't got any provisions as far as we understand, then you will understand that, things have been really tough. Again, 2 nights ago when we arrived here, we spoke to the governor of Cheng. He was optimistic. He said everything was being done to get the boys out. But he also made the statement that every minute counted. Well, that was 48 hours ago, and they still haven't found them. So I think while everyone is still very committed here, it's going to be a big struggle to get in there, and I think as the hours and minutes tick by, hope is becoming a little less sure. Just up here you can see, again, some of the locals, they've obviously come to offer their prayers. We've got the army in the background. And if we swing the camera across here to this tent, there's a little first aid station. There's a much more comprehensive first aid station in preparation of getting anyone out of the caves a little further down the hill. But this has been for the relatives. And again, for the last 3 days, we've seen the parents and relatives and other concerned villagers just sitting here and waiting very quietly. The ones that we've spoken to have been optimistic. They say they're hoping for the best, but again, as time ticks by, questions must be entering their mind. It's a very difficult time. Obviously, we saw yesterday one of the footballers in the team who was being interviewed by the media, but it all became a bit too much for the young lad. Clearly he was missing his teammates enormously. The attention and just the pressure of missing his friends was all a bit overwhelming, and he needed a little medical attention. Not surprisingly, I think the authorities are trying to keep people away as much as possible, but anyone who's been interested has been able to come up here. Again, there's been no hindrance to the families. They say they're getting all the help and advice they need from the authorities. A lot of people have been arriving at this site too, spontaneously, bringing whatever help they can get. It's a characteristic, I have to say, of disaster scenes I've seen in Thailand, that when these things happen, and obviously they hit the headlines in a very major way, this story now a big story all around the world as well, not just here in Thailand, but people want to do what they can, they want to give, they want to contribute in some way, and we've seen a lot of that. People just carrying boxes of provisions. Now, yesterday, I have to say, this whole area was rather out of control. It felt very frantic, rather, chaotic, as people just came up, tried to chip in a way they could, but in some ways were being more of a hindrance than a help. But today, the authorities have put a much tighter security ring around here. Even the media are being given only limited access, but I think they're trying to do so in a sensitive manner. If you come down here, you can see the police. They've come equipped now with rubber boots. It's been pretty grim for a lot of the guys who've been working on this site because of the heavy rain. It was raining very heavily this morning. That seems to have passed. And you can see here people just waiting. The military, we've got a Thai military Humvee going past carrying provisions, those presumably for the troops. Yesterday we saw 1,000 Thai soldiers coming into the site. General Anupong, who's the Minister of the Interior Minister, visited the site in the morning, and I think, having seen what was going on, he again wanted to boost the numbers of people. But if there has been any criticism of the rescue effort, it's that it has been, certainly people have been here in numbers, but I think with a specialist search and rescue effort like this, you need very specialist skills. We were speaking to a British man who's been in the caves for the last 3 days. He's been living in Mesai for the last 5 years. He's an expert cave explorer, and he was leading the initial rescue efforts. He was saying it is a very complex cave system. In some areas it's wide, in some areas there are huge caverns. In fact, in one part there's even what they refer to as a beach, a large area of sand where where the water's rising up. So it takes an awful lot to get to know these caves. The water is very murky, and getting through has been very complicated. And while I think the Thai government, again, it's a military junta here, so they have a very close control over the military. They have sent in vast numbers of troops. A lot of those actually aren't very well trained, and some have suggested it's more of a hindrance than a help. And the specialist equipment that they need hasn't really been here. That is changing now. We understand some special cave rescue equipment is currently arriving from the United Kingdom. It should be here any moment now with a team of British cave experts who apparently specialize in this sort of thing. Other help has been offered from the international community and is coming in, but again, it's a race against time. I think the concern is for everybody here that as the moments are ticking past, these are young boys in a desperate condition whose health obviously is very good, but how long can they survive inside? Water clearly isn't that much of a problem. They've got more of it, far more than they want, but they don't have food, and we think they came straight from practice in shorts and t-shirts. In fact, when we were up at the cave entrance, again we can get a slightly better view from here. The cave entrance just over there, about 75 meters and just off to the left. And there were the bicycles chained up with the boys when they arrived, and a pair of football boots, a reminder that they were a football team, a reminder perhaps that they were just out for a bit of fun. It was a quick trip, but a quick trip that has turned into something else altogether. Again, if you walk up here, and you can see why the Thai authorities have tried to regulate this site a little bit. You've got all of the rescue vehicles, but again, because of the media interest, we've got big satellite trucks here too. And that's been a bit of a problem for the Thai authorities, because with so many people here on their phones, the broadband that they desperately need to coordinate their efforts has been in fairly limited supply. One of the technical aspects of getting this up in the last couple of days has been bringing in big telecoms vans, trying to improve the broadband here so that they can get communications better. Now, if you look up here, it's a little bit difficult because this is the area above the caves, and this has been of particular interest in the last 24 hours. Yesterday, a helicopter was sent up to the jungle over the cave complex to survey the area. They were able to find 2 small chimneys. Now, they said that was a very good sign because it meant that fresh air was getting into at least parts of the caverns. Today, they say they found a larger hole. Now, the ones they found yesterday were too small for anybody to get into. They dropped some food in. They don't know whether anyone was able to get it, but it was certainly too small for anyone to crawl in or out of. The hole they say they found today, and we haven't been able to see it yet because getting up into this jungle is incredibly difficult. It's very dense, it's very steep, and again, the conditions are hot and humid, very uncomfortable to walk in, so that the guys that are going up there need to be experts, not just in cave exploration, search and rescue, but also mountain climbing. Anyway, they have got one place where they think it's wide enough to lower somebody down, and we think they've tried to get somebody in there today to try and get into the caves. Again, they don't know exactly where that hole drops into, but if they can get down there, they can add a little extra to this search and maybe, just maybe, find a little pocket where these 13 young boys and their coach may be hiding. Now, a little further up here is the Search and Rescue Coordination Center. It's quite a trek, and again, can't overemphasize enough how difficult it's been to maneuver around the site, the mud, the amount of traffic. But this, in normal times, was the ranger station. This is a national park, one of many in Thailand. This was the visitor center where people would have come to survey the area, to see what was on offer in terms of sightseeing, in terms of activities. Now it's a hive of activity with people going in and out. You can see the banks of cameras waiting here, and it's really, there is an awful lot of attention focused on this disaster now. We're not just seeing Thai interest. Of course, people in Thailand are desperately interested, but it's a story that's captured the attention of the world. There was a feeling, I think in the last couple of days, that while it was a race against time, there was a very good chance that people could come out. It's sad to say, but the reality is, at this stage, that opportunity is slipping away, and slipping away quite fast. We've heard of people in the past who've been trapped before. A French tourist, a couple of locals. They've survived as long as 5 days until they were contacted. But again, 5 days, we are now in the 5th day, and the things that those boys need, the basic cover, shelter, warmth and nutrition, are sorely lacking, and this is going to be an enormous struggle. I think everybody still desperately wants a miracle, but as the minutes and the hours and the days tick past, that's probably increasingly unlikely. Thank you very much for watching CGTN. You can follow us on all of our social media platforms. We'll be back bringing you updates about this story. Please follow the channel, follow our news, and we'll keep you informed as soon as anything happens here. My name's Tony Cheng. I'm reporting for CGTN here at Tham Luang Cave in Chiang Rai in northern Thailand.